Call the Kitty Hawk Town Council to order this Monday, May 7, 2018 at Kitty Hawk Town Hall. It's now 6 p.m. Glad to see everybody out here that wants to speak. Glad you always come out and pay attention to what's going on. And would you join us for a moment of silence and pledge allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I believe we have some commenters, so we're now into public comment. Lynn? Oh, I'm sorry, did I miss it?
Yes.
I can't wait to get Mr. Oliver up. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, Lynn.
Yes. Actually, it's Mr. Dewisha first.
Hello, good evening. I just want to take a moment to make my comment regarding the proposed land swap urgent care center on Putter Lane issue. I've made every attempt possible to come to the town council meetings. Just want to make my opinion still known to the mayor and everyone else in the council that I'm still opposed to the plan. I'm still concerned about the devaluation of my property and the conditional use permit. Rob did send me some revised plans, although I see that we made some progress in some of the issues we'll talk about in the later part of the meeting. I'm still opposed to it based on the fact that I think it's going to devalue my property. So I want to make it known for the record.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Spencer Oliver.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, members of the council. This is my fourth month in a row coming here to protest against the rezoning of the property on Putter Lane next to adjacent to my property. I don't feel that all of the council has acted properly or the planning board has acted properly from the very beginning. I mean, in the dark night in December, the planning council decided to recommend to the town council that they rezone these lots and be part of a swap for land by, at that time, the person was called the applicant. He didn't put his name there. And after a while, we found out who it was, but eventually they wanted to swap 4 lots, which he didn't even own, in return for 2 lots, which would be zoned by the town council. And the swap was conditional on the zoning. So if they zoned the 2 lots, and he would buy the other lots, and he would give them to the town. And of course, originally, I mean, the original 4 months ago when I was here, it was said that these lots were worth $424,000 because they were assessed at $106,000 apiece. And that would gain $100,000 profit for the town council, which I found a little strange. I didn't know that the town council was in the real estate business to try to make a profit. But it turned out that those lots had been sold for $70,000 not too long ago, and they've been on the market, none of them have been sold. So actually, it would be a bad deal. You'd actually lose money even if you went through with this. So I think the whole thing from the very beginning, when the planning board made this decision in December, and they didn't notify me or the other people in the adjacent properties that this was about to happen. So then in December, when you had the town council, you ran it through the town council in less than 1 minute, with no discussion whatsoever, even though the town planning board had said that this did not conform to the town land use plan, but nobody seemed to care about that. No discussion, nothing, just whizzed right on through. So I think it's been a bad deal from the start. It's devalued the value of my property, and Tom DeLucia's property, Mike Dunn's property across the street. I've been here now, this is the 4th time. There's never been a discussion. Nobody's asked any questions. Nobody's justified, not conforming with the town land use plan. Just whizzed through like a river. So anyway, I will certainly speak in the public hearing about this, but I
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else signed up?
Yes, sir.
We had some newcomers. Anyone else want to speak at this part of the public comment section? We're still going to have a public hearing, so there's another chance to speak more direct if that's what you're intending to do. All right, let the record show no one came forward. All right. Consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as promulgated?
Motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. There were no items removed. Public hearings, we have 2 of them. We'll get into that straightforward, and we'll do them individually since one of them is somewhat contentious. So I'll make a motion to go into public hearing for conditional use permit 5113 and 5117 Putter Lane, a requested cup site plan. Does that have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, we're now in public hearing. And anyone out there that still plans to speak at this, at a cup or a conditional use permit, the law now says you have to swear in to speak. Please do not be intimidated by that. We want to hear if you have something to say. The law up in legislation land is what caused that. It's not something we particularly want, but we do want to hear from you, so don't be afraid to be sworn in if that's what you want to do.
All right, as you mentioned, this is a conditional use permit for the licensed physician office at 5113 and 5117 Putter Lane. I will note that should this get approved, that the addresses will be changed to North Croton Highway addresses, so they'll no longer have the Putter Lane address. They're requesting approval of a conditional use permit to construct a single medical office building, 6,003 square feet in size. The development plan consists of vehicular access, parking, and drainage improvements. The 2 subject properties are presently zoned emergency and government services and presently undeveloped. Each of the properties has 100 feet of frontage on North Croton Highway and is 200 feet in depth. In total, the 2 adjoining properties cover 40,000 square feet. Directly abutting the subject properties to the north is zoned MS1 that was previously approved for a medical office building in 2015. Further to the north is the ear, nose, and throat office that was also part of that 2015 conditional use permit approval. To the south are 3 single-family residences. To the west, across Putter Lane, are several single-family residential properties in DR1. To the east, across North Croton Highway, there are several commercially zoned properties in the BC2 district. They include 2 single-family residences and Surf Pediatrics. We'll note that since the planning board review of the conditional use permit and site plan, the applicant has submitted a revised site plan that actually reduces the footprint of the building and reduces the overall lot coverage. That's what's shown up here. Try to zoom in a little bit for you. And so you'll note on the site plan, in addition to reducing the overall size of the building, on the initial submission, the south wall of the building was offset 11 feet from the southern property line. Now it's at a distance of 33 feet, so there's an increased setback buffer area for that for the building. And you also note that there's no longer the dumpster pad shown. With the reduction of the square footage and the building size, Dare County Sanitation has allowed them to go with 3 rollout carts instead of the dumpsters. As noted, it reduces the building from over 7,000 square feet to just over 6,000. And one additional change that should be noted is that the number of doctors employed in the building has changed from 3 to 4, and the number of employees increased from 8 to 12, which has increased the required parking from 23 spaces to 32. The amount of parking spaces shown on the plan did not change. There was 39 previously shown, and they've kept that consistent. Let's see, so for access to North Croatan Highway, the subject properties will be served by one new 22-foot wide ingress-egress drive off the North Croatan Highway at the end of, southern end of Lot 7. NC DOT encroachment permit will be necessary to install the proposed driveway onto North Croatan Highway. I was informed today by the applicant's engineer that that has been issued from DOT. Let's see, in addition, a 22-foot wide parking lot connection is proposed to connect the proposed development to the existing parking lots on lots 3, 4, and 5. The town's adopted land use plan specifically highlights the importance of providing such interconnectivity and states a specific objective to encourage interparcel connections between commercial lots on adjoining Highway 158. While it's also an objective to reduce the curb cuts on 158, this proposed curb cut was necessary to meet the fire code requirements. In speaking with Ben Alexander, because the length of this drive from the north property line to here is greater than 150 feet, they either needed to provide the curb cut on the North Croatan Highway or a large cul-de-sac for the fire trucks to be able to turn around, or a large hammerhead turnaround area. So the drive aisle will also serve as the fire lane for the property, complies with the NC Fire Code. Access easements will need to be recorded to ensure that the shared drive aisle is maintained in the future. The parking, kind of already went over the update to that. There's 32 spaces required now. The plan shows 39 on the 2 subject parcels, and then 7 additional parking spaces on lot 5 to the north there. ADA standards require a minimum of 2 handicap accessible parking spaces, including 1 van accessible space. The engineer showed a total of 3 ADA spaces proposed, so it meets the ADA standards. As far as buffers go, buffers shall be required between all uses in a commercial zone and abutting residential zones. It's staff's interpretation that although the MS1 district and an urgent care use specifically are not what you typically think of a commercial use, like a retail or otherwise, it's still a commercial office. So it's my interpretation, and I guess it's up for council to determine for sure, that the development would be subject to the requirements of Division 5, buffers and landscaping. I've added further details on that below in the staff analysis. Waste management, it notes in the staff report that they'd be locating dumpsters at the west end of the parking area. Again, this revision was later coming in and updating the staff report. I didn't get that one in, but as I noted, this revision eliminates the dumpster and dumpster pads. Lighting, as with other commercial developments, they'll have to get an approved lighting plan before any installation or building permits will be issued for outdoor lighting. They'll have to get a sign permit issued before the sign will be able to be installed. They'll be able to have their own freestanding sign up to 48 square feet in size. They have shown on the plan a single freestanding sign on the development. Don't see it on the revision. On the original submittal, it was, I believe, in this area of the lot.
That's there.
So per the standards of section 42-99B7, in order to approve this application, town council must make findings that the proposed conditional use, A, does not materially endanger the public health or safety. If all the required state and other permits are obtained, then authorized agencies will have reviewed and permitted the driveway designs and locations, septic systems, water lines, stormwater management, and erosion sediment control plan. Therefore, it can be presumed that these improvements will be made in a safe manner. Allowance of a new curb cut on the North Croatan Highway is not ideal, but as mentioned, it is necessary to meet the fire code access requirements. B, it does meet, or it does have to meet all required conditions and specifications. With the compliance with compliance of the suggested conditions in the staff report, the proposed use will comply with all applicable standards of the town code. C, will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property or be a public nuisance. The effects on property values of properties adjacent to non-residential use is something that's widely debated. According to Hosey Wilson, the assistant assessor for Dare County, what you typically find for facilities of this type is that in most cases, property values are positively affected. Many buyers feel that being in close proximity to a medical facility is a positive external factor. And he noted as an example, the subdivision Nags Head Cove is in very close proximity to the Outer Banks Hospital, and they've seen no negative effects on real estate market since the hospital has been established there. The hospital being open 24/7, having ambulance and occasional helicopter traffic is also a more intense use than proposed urgent care office that's going to be open normal business hours with no ambulance or helicopter traffic. The proposed use of an urgent care is not the type of use that should become any type of public nuisance. And D, will be in harmony with the area in which it's located and be in general conformity with the comprehensive plan. With the approval of the previous rezoning request and subsequent automatic amendment of the land use plan, the proposed use is in general conformity with the comprehensive plan. Staff recommended conditions would allow the development to be more harmonious with the adjacent residential zone and uses. So as the staff comments, in order to mitigate potential visual impacts to adjacent residential uses, staff recommends requiring a type A vegetative buffer along the western and southern property boundaries. Per section 42-654A, a type A buffer is an opaque vegetative buffer of a minimum width of 10 feet that will reach a height of 6 feet in 3 years. The buffer may include a stabilized soil berm as part or all of the required height. And in this particular instance, the stabilized berm with vegetation on top of the berm was recommended by the planning board. Given that it's going to have a 10-foot width, there are, and Mr. Ryan, the engineer, will be able to explain it more, there are constraints on just how high it will be able to go, the berm, because you'll have to have it graded at a stable slope in order to prevent any erosion or runoff. Maintenance of buffers would be a continuing condition of the site plan approval, and failure to maintain the buffers would constitute grounds for a revocation of any occupancy permit per section 42-655. It's also staff recommendation that the two lots be recombined into one singular lot prior to any building permits being issued. And then at the planning board meeting, in addition to the staff recommended comments, the planning board recommended that the vegetative screen and berm be extended through the southern portion of lot 5 to the Putter Lane curb cut, that the dumpster pad be relocated to mitigate impact to adjacent residences. As I mentioned, that's been eliminated altogether. And they also recommended that a lockable arm gate be placed on the existing Putter Lane curb cut. The planning board had also discussed a potential condition limiting the development to a one-story building as shown in the proposed elevation, but it was unintentionally left out of the motion. At its March 15th, 2018 meeting, the planning board unanimously recommended approval of the proposed conditional use permit for the establishment of a licensed physician at 5113 and 5117 Putter Lane with those conditions noted above. The engineer is here as well. Be able to answer any questions or want to hear from him.
All right, council, before I ask for comments from the public, you have questions for Rob at this point?
Rob, do we know, this may be an engineer question, not sure, the south boundary line, how far is the new curb cut from the edge of that boundary line? Do we know?
Looking at where the setback line is there, I would estimate maybe 12 feet from the property line. Am I right? 12 feet?
12 feet?
Too close.
But it's in the state right away.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Was that your point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Of course, that's what we're here for.
Who has the key to the lock on the access to Putter Lane?
That was not so much discussed by the planning board. I guess it would be the assumption, because that drive is noted for emergency vehicles only. I guess fire department and police department would be the logical ones to have it. If that isn't approved, or if that's a condition that the town council places on it.
Well, yeah, but you couldn't put it on there without the owner having
Oh,
Right,
that's,
right.
my question was, is the fire and 911 going to have access? And did they discuss whether it would be actual gate or the same situation that we have in some of the streets in Kitty Hawk that have blocked access from one subdivision to another, but that can be opened up for the fire engines?
I see that as a separate issue, a different issue.
I was just curious, it's just,
Well, let's address that when we get to
because,
that point.
well, I didn't know whether this was appropriate or not.
Well, it will be when we get there.
Let me
If we
know.
decide to put a gate up or not, that sort of thing.
And I'm-
First, we got to get through this part.
I will note if a gate is an option that council wants to go with there, I think, the main point why the planning board recommended it was to prevent through traffic, just, everyday users. If there's a gate, even if it's not a lockable gate, just an arm gate that goes up and down, somebody, general user is not gonna drive out there, stop their car, get out, open the gate, drive through, and then carry on. So, the lockable part might be a bit more than necessary, in my opinion.
The whole point of that is, that's already been approved the way it is. It hasn't, unless we change something, that's an operating condition or use on the property that's there now, where you're talking about the gate.
I just was
Okay?
trying to gather information on it.
All right. Anybody else right now? All right, before I call for, there's a couple things I want to make clear. We're dealing not with a land swap here at this point. We're dealing with a conditional use, and whether or not we accept that as positive or not positive for this particular setup. The other thing I want to make very clear is, regardless of what council does here tonight, the governmental use should have been done as a zoning long ago. It just got overlooked. If we were to keep this property tonight, that governmental use zoning stays. That doesn't go away. It should have been done. It must stay one way or the other. So whatever you say, it's not going to change that in that sense, all right? Now, whether or not this goes beyond the cup and into something else, we'll see how that goes. All right, let's let folks have a chance to talk.
Hi. I was glad to hear a lot of the information that Rob shared. Some of those were my concerns at the last planning board meeting, particularly the dumpster was my primary concern. So to hear that that's been removed was a huge relief to me. The one thing that still I would request you consider for this conditional use permit is that parking, although is required to have 32 now based on the increase in staffing, there's 39. And my preference would be to have the parking in the back of the building where that line is, which is consistent with the other building, the EHP next door that's already built, so that you would lose 2 parking spots, really, because it's in the middle of half one of the parking spots back there. So, in essence, the least possible encroachment towards Putter Lane, the better, in my opinion. So that would be my request from the committee and the council here, is that they go ahead and eliminate 2 more parking spots on the end of that, so that it's closer to the end of the back of the building. Since you're already exceeding the required number of parking spots, although the dumpster is gone, which was a huge relief. Like I said, with the vegetative barrier that they're planning on putting in the back, I think it would just be more aesthetically appropriate for the parking to end with the back of the building. It's just my opinion. And that's my formal request at this point, is that the board consider making that condition, part of the permit. The other issue, we talked about who decides, or is that decided tonight, that the building will be capped at 1 story as a conditional use? Is that something that comes out of tonight's?
Yes.
Okay. And the gate, they already talked about. Other thing is just the safety of people coming, on the main highway. People are coming at 55 miles an hour, regardless of the speed limit. When they get to that opening off the highway, there's gonna be people turning in there. So when Rob was talking about, the general safety of the public and so on and so forth, I don't know how long it's gonna be before somebody gets T-boned, but I guarantee I'll have a front row seat because I'll be able to see it from my deck when it happens. Someone's gonna get T-boned with that. Another cut coming in there. The ENT, they're not very busy. They have patients come and go. The urgent care is a different story. You're gonna have people coming in there, constantly flowing in. So you're gonna increase the traffic. There's gonna be an increase in issues with people coming, from Home Depot's direction. They're already up 50, 55 miles an hour. So I don't know if, who does traffic studies or who's deemed this safety or a non-safety issue, but it's something that I think is a safety issue. And I don't know how long it's gonna be before, like I said, somebody's gonna get hurt right in front of the urgent care. As far as the property values go, a hospital is an apple and an urgent care is an orange, in my opinion. So to say that the property values are gonna increase because the urgent care is there, I disagree with that. It's not the same thing. A hospital, there are different capabilities than an urgent care center. So I still don't see this as a property enhancing venture for me, having one at the end of my driveway. So that's pretty much it. My main primary concern is this looks like it's gonna happen. Everybody's been in favor of it since day one. So if there's an option to limit the impact on my property, I'm formally requesting 2 additional parking spots be removed so that it doesn't come any closer to my house than it needs to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Spencer Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I was quite intrigued by Rob's interpretation of town code. It says that somehow that our property values are going to be enhanced and not devalued. I think the 3 of us who came here on the first night 3 months ago or 4 months ago made the case that it devalues our property. I mean, we sit there. I've told you that my tenant's already given me notice to move out. I mean, the Mike Dunn, who built the spec house across the street, has already told you this devalues. You're gonna have a hard time even selling it. So here, our own property owner, Tom DeLucia, tells you it devalues his house. Obviously it devalues their houses. So I don't see how the town council can say that they have met this criteria. To approve the application, the town council, I'm reading from the law, or from the regulation, must make findings that the proposed conditional use does not materially endanger the public health or safety. Well, the public safety, I can tell you, those 3 cuts there, people come around that curve and they get up to 55 miles an hour. That's very dangerous. Now, I talked to the DOT too. They didn't even do a traffic impact survey. The district engineer or district director, whatever he was, said, well, I looked at it on Google Earth. I don't think that really is enough to ensure that you have somehow not endangered the public safety by putting those 3 cuts into that highway. It's pretty obvious. Anybody goes up there, try to turn left if you're coming north, or wait till that traffic releases from the bank of lights just 1,500 feet above there. That's dangerous. And the mayor's even asked for the tourism board to give them additional police because of congestion there. Now the congestion's gonna be worse and the safety is going to be terrible. And it says it will not substantially devalue the value of the adjoining property. Well, we're the adjoining property owners, and we can tell you it does. What somebody said about some survey in Nags Head has no bearing on this whatsoever. And it says that in order to do this, it must be in harmony with the general conformity of the comprehensive plan. Well, the town planning board told you initially that it was not in conformity with the comprehensive plan. So, I mean, you already know it's not, that you can't meet that. You know that you can't meet that criteria, and you're just ignoring it. I mean, and the first time that this was put before the planning board, the representative of the applicant said, in effect, you know, this is going to provide additional health care for the community, and that's what the survey said we need. Well, that's not what it said, and I told you that. It doesn't provide additional health care. This provides additional property, which doesn't in any way enhance the health care needs of this community. 83% of the people are satisfied with health care. What that survey said was, you need more doctors down here. Well, this doesn't help get more doctors. You close the urgent care center in the marketplace, and you just move it down the street. So you don't have more health care, you've got less. So I think this is a bad deal. I think people should think about what they're doing here. I really think that you should worry about whether or not you actually conform to the rules and regulations and laws. This is wrong. You should vote no on this. You should not approve this conditional use permit. It's not in conformity with your own rules. And I hope you'll give that some consideration. After 4 months, I've been making these points. Nobody's even commented, and nobody's even asked a question. So I guess maybe the fix is in, but I think that's a bad thing to do. I think it's the wrong thing for this town council to do, and I hope you consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no one else signed up.
You know what? Anyone out there care to speak? Yes, sir. Did you get sworn in?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Council members. My name is David Ryan with Creative Engineering Solutions, representing the applicant, Putter Lane OBX LLC. Before you for your consideration is a conditional use permit for a urgent care which will be operated by the Outer Banks Hospital. The site development plan has been an evolution over time, representing many iterations, some specifically to address the concerns of the neighboring property owners. As Mr. Testerman had gone ahead and noted, some of those changes include an enhanced buffering along the south and west property lines, which the applicant has agreed to go ahead and go above and beyond what is required by the code. Additionally, we had included enhanced separation from the building with a reduced building footprint, going from 11 feet, as noted on the original plan, to 33 feet, to lessen the impact of the adjoining neighbor to the south. In addition, there was a solid waste dumpster pad, which was noted here on the left hand, or on the west side of the property, which we have now removed based upon further communications with the Dare County Sanitation Department in order to get roll-off carts and minimize the impact there. We've also increased some of the radius there for the inner parcel connection, so the sanitation vehicles have a ease of access to pick up for those sanitation cans. We have also reduced the overall lot coverage along with the building footprints, as well as pared down the use from multiple use, originally with a partial pharmacy and urgent care, to now a single use for urgent care facility. The parking, which is shown, represents an excess of parking spaces. That is to promote flexibility in the future. The town code for the parking standard is 5 spaces per 1 doctor, plus 1 space per employee. So if there is an opportunity for an additional doctor to perform here at this facility, we wanted to ensure that we were compliant. That's why we provided the additional parking and infrastructure up front to allow future flexibility for that to occur. So we've tried to address some of the concerns of the adjoining property owners, as well as the site layout itself. With the prior plan for lots 3 to 5 to the north, there was an inter parcel connection that was provided, which was a recommendation at that time for that conditional use permit. It's now permitted this transition from the lots to the north to this subject property, as well as an additional drive aisle in order to go ahead and meet the fire code requirements in accordance with Appendix D. The other option was to go ahead and have another connection to Putter Lane as an option, but knowing that that would create additional adverse impacts to the adjoining property owners, we had to forego that in order to make that connection to 158. The location of this drive has been done in order to meet some of the requirements of the NCDOT policy for access to highways. Typically, when you have multiple curb cuts, you want to provide the greatest separation distance from the existing curb cut that we have to Lot 5, and that's been cited as far to the south as possible in order to conform and comply with their standards. So again, everything that has been shown or depicted on this site plan has been planned carefully in order to meet either state requirements or local requirements, for this application. And during this process, we have obtained state permits for an extension of a water line along 158 in order to provide additional fire flow capabilities for this facility. We have acquired a state stormwater management permit to address stormwater management and runoff from this application, in addition to submitting application for a right-of-way encroachment and driveway access permit from DOT. DOT are currently the experts, and they review each and every application for conformance to their policies and procedures. And based upon the number of parking spaces proposed for this application, they had determined that it did not meet the warrants for a higher level traffic impact study for this application. But what we had done specifically for this is we had followed up to look at some of the criteria that they typically use for an analysis of traffic impact for applications. There's two sources of information that are typically used. One is the Institute of Traffic Engineers and the parking generation calculations, as well as the highway capacity manual. And we looked at both of those references for this specific application and this type of use, and it did not meet the warrants or levels for a decline level of service along 158, which would warrant any further restrictions for access to the highway. So we have tried to do our due diligence to ensure that it met general health, safety, and welfare and good engineering practices for this application with the siting, location of this driveway access. So it should be noted that in the planning board approval that there were some additional conditions that were applied for that. And I just wanted to make note of that what's under consideration for a conditional use permit is for these two subject properties, which is lot 6 and 7 here. There is a separate conditional use permit that was issued in January 2015 for lots 3 to 5, which is, this is lot 5 here, this is lot 4, and there's lot 3 to the north. As part of that conditional use permit approval, there was conditions on signage being placed at the egress onto Putter Lane. To the best of my knowledge, those signs are still intact, and that the other conditions for that conditional use permit still apply, and that this applicant is compliant as it stands today. So we would ask that any of those conditions that were noted by the planning board be exempted from this application, Again, looking at this as a separate conditional use permit, apart from what is being considered this evening.
Thank you. I agree with that. I have a couple of questions. Anyone else want to start?
Mr. Ryan, addressing Mr. DeLucia's concerns first about the 2.5, 3 parking spaces, eliminating those from what you just said is really not an option because you want to be able to accommodate any future doctors that may come, correct?
That is correct, in order to go ahead and meet town code requirements.
Which, Mr. Oliver, is related to your concern that we need more doctors.
Having more land doesn't give you more doctors.
That's all I've got to say, Mr. Ryan. Thank you.
All right, well, that was one of my questions. Since we're on that subject, let me ask the question, and this might go to Casey rather than you. The parking lots that are over on the other lot,
On lot 5.
yes. Since we're looking at this, how does that fit in a legal
I
circumstance?
had the exact same question, and Rob actually did a really good job explaining it at the planning board meeting. And the fact of the matter is that we're not affected, our code's not affected because the development there of the, how many do we have, 7 running, 7 parking spaces on lot 5? It's not intense enough, if you will, to require, and because there's joint ownership, which is a key as well, it doesn't, we can approve it as part of this plan, I guess is a better way to say it, without affecting the conditional use permit that was previously.
What happens though if the property is sold off, split up in some fashion?
Well, and that's a scenario, same as what I had for Rob, because the question there kind of goes back to, when I'm looking at this, or we're requiring the recombination of the 2 lots wherein the building will be on to prevent that exact issue, and perhaps maybe Rob come back up and explain what he did at the planning board meeting, because I had the exact same questions, but he provided a form of exception that I was comfortable with.
All right, well, let's get that on the public record, because the planning board is not
Absolutely.
tape.
So our town code with, relates to site plan approvals for minor site plan modifications can be done administratively. So I was looking at the 7 parking spaces on lot 5, something that could be done as an administrative site plan modification to lot 5. Where we're gonna be, or where it's suggested to require recorded easement for the drive aisle between the 2 lots. I guess, Casey, we could probably require some kind of recordation to keep these 7 parking spaces tied in with lot 6 and 7 as well.
And that was gonna be my comment after the meeting, but I wanted to wait till council to do that. We could certainly by agreement, even if ownership ends up splitting down the road, as long as there's a dedicated easement for parking, and it could be as simple as parking easement, then any future development, or excuse me, any future sale of lot 5 or anything north of the 2 lots that we're looking at tonight would still, it'd be sold subject to that. But it would also be restricted.
Or the owner of the 2 lots we're dealing with now would have to cut back on some employees or something.
Correct.
All right, so we recognize something would have to happen. All right, that's really what I was after.
And the applicant would be amenable to going ahead and providing a shared parking easement agreement, which would hold these in perpetuity along with this shared access right here. So that could be done under a single agreement that would.
Okay, I understand. I just wanted to make sure the record showed that we asked the question, what kind of answers came out of it, and things change in the future, so perpetuity is pretty long-standing. All right, council, anyone? Of Mr. Ryan? I have a question, but it's not of you, and we haven't sworn in. I want Mr. Chief Talley to come up. So if you would swear Mr. Chief Talley in. I know this is a little bit off the wall, but it's some questions that I think are germane to what we're doing here tonight. Chief, the town owns the 2 lots. They were bought for the purpose of a fire station sometime in the future. Whether or not that ever happens, whether it becomes mandated or not, I don't know. But for the sake of let's argue in that the town keeps the property, the town builds a fire station. My question is a couple of things. In today's world, when you build a fire station, you have to have a back door and a front door. Is that a correct statement?
Correct, that's how they're designing the fire stations.
So in this case, the back door would obviously be Putter Lane.
Correct.
When you build a fire station today, does it have to have an engine company to be really compatible with what state requirements are?
Yes, that's
And-
your main platform.
And your engine company consists of how many apparatus?
It's one apparatus, one fire truck.
One fire truck, not three?
Based on calculations and depending on the size of your jurisdiction and your needed fire flow, the entire jurisdiction may only require 3 total. But depending on the growth, and again, that needed fire flow, which is gallons per minute is what it is, it could be an additional 3 fire trucks, yes.
Okay, so we could have 3 fire trucks in a firehouse, and depending upon the mandate, that mandate could say by the growth of the town, that we've got a wide apron, back door, front door. We have to build for people to man the station 24/7, meaning full-time manning. In that case, because of the size of the lot, to fit it all in there, that would be a 2-story structure, would it not?
Yes, potentially, yes.
It would have to be 2 stories, be pretty wide. When you're testing fire equipment, and I know this because I hear you most every day, what's involved, just in the testing daily?
Mainly operating equipment to make sure that it's going to be running properly, function properly when on the scene. So it's all from testing your sirens to testing equipment, running equipment like chainsaws or generators. Pretty much anything we carry, we're going to be operating on a daily basis.
So daily, it's pretty noisy.
It can be, yes. I
Yes.
apologize for that.
No? I mean, that's the way it is.
Yes.
And
Glad it works.
I know that, we all know that, so it's part of the routine. So if we look at this from the point of view that we keep it, and a fire station eventually has to be built, it's going to impact people. And I know when we built the fire station here in Kitty Hawk, there were people that were very upset, and some of them left because of that. So a fire station there, while it might benefit the community, would not benefit necessarily adjacent homeowners in a quiet fashion. All right, thank you. Anyone else have a question for him?
No, sir.
All right, you understand the point I'm trying to make here?
Exactly.
Point we were taking.
All right. Okay, council. Now, when we go back, if we have no further questions here, then all the discussion is among us. We can't ask anything out here. Everybody ready to do that? All right.
Mr. Mayor, before you discuss it any further, can I just check my math with the parking situation here? Because Mr. Garris brought something up and something's not adding up to me. So the proposition was that there's 39 parking spaces currently. Is that correct? 39 parking spaces, okay. 32 are required based on the number of employees that you identified, doctors and staff, correct? With the potential of an additional doctor somewhere down the road, would need 5 more parking spots. That brings us to 37. We have 39, so we could still reduce it by 2 without any impact. Is my math correct?
The doctor will need staff, and that is
That
the
would
2
be
extra.
extra 5,
That's the
correct.
2 extra,
That's
no.
what I'm- No.
The 5 are for the doctor's patients.
Okay,
The
so
2 that are his staff fall under the employee category.
that's not what was explained when the staffing model.
David?
So each doctor had 5 additional spots per physician. That's how we got to 32 was the minimum number of parking spaces that this plan would require. We
Mr.
needed
Ryan.
32 parking spaces, is what I heard.
Would you come back up, please?
Is that-
Ryan, Mr. Ryan.
No, our parking requirements for a medical office or clinic is one, for parking spaces, it's 5 spaces per doctor plus 1 per employee. So you're saying if they brought in an additional doctor, there's 5. If that doctor had additional employees, those 1 additional spaces per employee would count for that.
So how do you get 32 based on the number of current doctors and employees?
Right now, they're proposing 4 doctors, 12 employees. So
Okay,
20 for the doctors, 12 for the employees.
okay. So by adding an additional doctor, you would need 6 spaces?
It would depend on the number of employees. It would be 5 for the additional doctor, and then that'd be 37, so there'd be 2 additional for employees that could potentially be hired.
Okay.
So we're basing a parking plan, as the mayor said earlier, we don't know what in perpetuity could mean. We don't know if there'll ever be an additional doctor. So we're gonna put parking in just because. My concern is, where are the 3 rollouts gonna go? Right where the dumpster was, that little dip in the curve there? So,
Well, we're not dictating that, so that's,
well, where are they gonna go? I don't know. The engineer has an idea where those rollouts are gonna go, but, to me,
all
that
right.
seems like. where
Mr.
they're
Ryan,
gonna go.
answer his question if you can.
The rollouts are being proposed to be placed right here. The pickup for the Dare County Sanitation Department is a right-hand pickup, so they could pull in here, pick up the carts, and then be able to back out and go out, so.
That, I have absolutely no problem with that, that'd be awesome, because on Putter Lane now, the current building that's there, and I know we're not talking about the current building, but they put their rollouts on Putter Lane, and there's always trash blowing out of them, they're there, 7 days a week. and
Okay.
It's an eyesore. Okay, so.
All right.
then leave it as is, I have no problem with that,
All right.
that's fine.
Mr. Mayor?
Real quick, please.
Since you raised the question of the fire station,
Yes.
I was quite curious as to whether or not there's any prospect you're gonna build a 4th fire station in this area. I mean, you already decided a long time ago that this was not gonna be the site for the Iron Fire Station, so you built it in Kitty Hawk. Now, there's one right across the way in Southern Shores, and there's one right up the road in Southern Shores. There are 3 fire stations within 2 miles.
It doesn't count. We've been through this. We've got minutes all up the yin-yang that prove that the state is still requiring the town of Kitty Hawk due to hydrant flow and number of hydrants, interestingly enough. We never figured out how that worked. They are still requiring, are recommending strongly, pushing, if you will, Kitty Hawk have a fire station north of where we are. And it has to do with fire hydrant numbers and fire flow and the kind of commercial businesses that are up there. So forget Southern Shores, their fire department is their own. We have our own, everybody's got their own little turf thing, but that's a state requirement. That's just what it is. So that's why that was built or bought in the first place.
So why are you having a medical office if you need?
Well, that's a different issue entirely. Yeah, no, that's a different issue. All I did was brought up the hypothetical, if we kept it, what's going to happen right here? Now, if a land swap should occur, then something moves further south. That's the bottom line. End of story. All right. I have one more question to Rob, and then I'll let you sit down. We'll get into this, okay? As far as I know, there have not been any accidents caused by the regional curb cut, and it's right in the corner. As far as I know, there have not been any accidents caused by the curb cut on what's now an EMT, could be some other medicals. This curb cut is even further south from that. On the east side of 158, individual property owners are beginning to curb cut to 158. There's a lot of them. Do they go through a study to do that, or do they just throw it out there and here I am?
I believe they, have to get, to be in a state highway, they have to get the DOT,
DOT's got to prove where it
the
is.
access agreement. But, as Mr. Ryan says, it's, you know, parking lots of a certain size, a certain amount of traffic is what generates some trips of the traffic study. So, you know, the smaller businesses, the homes that we see pop up on 158, they're not doing any traffic study or
Okay.
impact analysis.
All right. But we're getting them more all the time, because Ride Lane is just not, they're not able to do
So just
that.
for clarity, you feel that the applicant's done whatever he needed to do here to cross his Ts and dot his Is to make this the safest possible it could be?
Yes, and I mean, in my opinion, the part with the curb cut, that's DOT's right away. They tell you who, where, and how far apart the accesses can go. You know, it's not my area of expertise, but they've got DOT's blessing, and that's their expertise. So,
Okay.
in my opinion, if the DOT or DOT is satisfied, then it's good.
We're the engineers, we're not. Bottom line. All right. That's why you hire engineers to double check the engineer who did his work. All right. Anybody else have a question now? We'll go back into regular session, it's up to us. All right, then I make a motion to go back into regular session. Does it have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, folks, back in regular session. Discussion is open. Does anyone have any comments?
I got a problem with the lockbox.
You mean the gate?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't want that.
okay, well, good, we're fine then.
And I don't feel like we should impose a buffer beyond what's there, or what's on this lot.
Right,
As Mr. Ryan said.
Right, I
this
agree.
is We're looking at this lot,
I agree.
or these two lots, basically. All right? Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
It said the board also discussed a potential condition limiting the development to a one-story building as shown on the proposed elevation, but it was unintentionally left out of the motion.
I don't agree with that. People are allowed to build to 35 feet. Why would we limit them to anything less than what
It
other
could be
people?
a 35-foot tall ceiling.
Could be.
Can we not put it back in?
Well, it's up to county, it depends
If it
on
was
what the rest of the council
unintentionally
wants to do.
left out, can we intentionally leave it out? What do you think?
Well, we don't have.
It's not
we
even
don't-
in there.
It's not even in there. We don't
Okay.
have to consider it if we don't want to.
Thank
If
you.
you want to consider it, then bring it up in that fashion.
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? I want to leave one comment. Regional Medical Center has been there for a long time, and I am not aware that it diminished any property values at all. Now, some of you folks, I was gone for a while when they built that. Can anybody tell me if they know of that happening?
No, but regional medical and the other facilities did an awful lot to deal with golf balls above and beyond, too.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. All right. Any more comments? No discussion? All right, I'm going to make a motion, and I'm going to have to adulterate it just a little bit, Lynn, in order to accommodate what's going to happen here. I move to grant approval of the conditional use permit to establish a licensed physician office at 5113 and 5117 Putter Lane, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report, with the exception of the planning board's recommendation, and that is, we do not require the extension of the vegetative screen, berm, past Lot 5 to Putter Lane, and we do not require a lockable arm gate be placed on the existing Putter Lane, nor do we limit the building to one story. Does that make sense? We there? Everybody on board?
Yes, sir.
All right, we have a motion. Does it have a second?
A second.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, that's approved. All right, next item up, we have a conditional use permit for a cut to allow Craft Productions. I motion to go into public hearing for that. Does it have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, Rob?
All right, for this conditional use permit, as you mentioned, it's requesting approval of a conditional use permit to permit a glass blower operation in an existing retail store, a commercial building on North Virginia Dairy Trail. As described by the applicant, the glass blower would be set up to blow glass live for customers to see. Some of the pieces that would be blown would be needed to be fired in a small kiln. Craft production and retail sales are permitted in the BC1 district, subject to any reasonable conditions imposed by town council and the following specific conditions. A, the production of crafts must be incidental to and for the purpose of retail sales and not for the distribution to wholesale vendors. The proposed glass blowing operation would be incidental to the primary retail store that's existing. Items crafted would not be for distribution to wholesale vendors. The maximum square footage of the area devoted to the craft production shall not exceed 800 square feet. The applicant has confirmed that the area dedicated to the operation would be less than 800 square feet. The building in which the crafts are produced shall be constructed in a manner and with such materials as to prevent any noise originating within the facility from being heard beyond the approved site boundary line. If the same is a freestanding building, and to prevent any noise emanating from within the building or portion thereof used for craft production if the same is located within a multi-unit structure. An architect, engineer, or qualified professional must certify on the site plan that the proposed design and materials will allow no noise from the craft production activities within the building to be heard at any point on the approved site boundary or outside of the building, or that portion building used for craft production if the same is located within a multi-unit structure. I'm not an expert on glass blowing, but I know of some that are more familiar with it, and in my conversations with them, I've been told that the most noise you typically get is if somebody drops a tool, the metal clanging around. So I didn't feel, after having these conversations, I didn't feel it necessary to get the applicant to get an engineer to go out and certify the building. It seems like extra cost for something that may not be entirely necessary. All odors and vapors, including chemical vapors associated with or generated by production of crafts, shall be contained within the boundaries of the site or within the building, or that portion of the building used for the production of crafts in a multi-unit structure. When requested by the planning board, an engineer certification shall be furnished to the planning board that the design, construction, and proposed methods of odor or vapor control are sufficient to contain all odors and vapors generated by or emanating from the production of crafts within the site boundary. If a freestanding building or within the interior of that portion of the building used for the production of crafts in a multi-unit structure, the applicant has indicated that any odors or vapors produced would be contained within the boundaries of the site. The planning board did not request any engineer certification for that. The property owner must provide a waste container of sufficient size to accommodate all of the waste generated by the craft production activity. She has verified that sufficient waste container will be provided. If flammable materials are used in the craft production activity, the owner shall obtain and maintain firefighting apparatus or fire extinguishing apparatus in accordance with the requirements of the planning board or the volunteer fire department. I think this might need to be updated since we don't have a volunteer fire department anymore. The applicant has discussed this with the fire inspector and the building inspector. If approved, the glass blowing operation would meet the requirements of both. Background information, the subject property is located in the BC1 district. In total, the lot is approximately 10,000 square feet, and this is the lot just to the south of Arts Place. I think most recently it was a hair nail salon. I believe it itself was an old fire station at some point in the past. Abutting the property to the north is also zoned BC1. As I mentioned, contains Arts Place. Abutting the property to the south is the Saltaire Motel, zoned BC1. To the rear, there are several single-family residences, also zoned BC1. And across North Virginia Dairy Trail to the east are vacant lots and a single-family residence zoned BR1. I'll just note on the parking for this site, there's a legal nonconformity on the number of parking spaces available here. I believe there's 4 or 5 parking spaces. The property owner has provided staff with lease documents to indicate that this commercial use has continually operated in this location. After talking with Casey on this some time ago, determined that it was enough to constitute it being grandfathered or legal nonconformity. So again, to approve the application, town council must make the findings that the proposed conditional use does not materially endanger the public health or safety. There's no evidence to suggest that allowing the proposed use would endanger the public health or safety as long as the safety measures recommended by the building and fire inspectors are met. B, it does meet all required conditions and specifications. As noted in the staff report, the proposal would meet all specific requirements of craft production and retail sales. The items that are non-compliant with the zoning requirements are legal nonconformities. C, will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property or become a public nuisance. There's no evidence to suggest that permitting the glass blowing craft operation as an accessory to an existing retail business would substantially injure the value of the adjoining properties or be a public nuisance. D, will be in harmony with the area in which it's located and be in general conformity with the comprehensive plan. The proposed use is in harmony with the area in which it's located and in general conformity with the comprehensive plan. It's in a commercial zoning district in an area in the future land use map noted for the working area, commercial working area. At its March 15th, 2018 meeting, the planning board unanimously recommended approval of the proposed conditional use permit for the establishment of craft production and retail sales at 4622 North Virginia Dairy Trail, subject to those conditions listed in 42-250C14.
Anyone have questions of Rob? No? Lynn, anyone signed up? Does anyone want to speak on this conditional use permit? No one? All right, let the record show no one came forward. If council has no further questions, I'm going to make a motion, we go back in regular session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right, council, what do you want to do? Mr. Mayor, I move to grant approval of the proposed conditional use permit to allow the establishment of a craft production and retail sales at 4622 North Virginia Dairy Trail. Town council finds that the proposed use is consistent with the town's adopted Campbell Land Use Plan and finds this to be in the public interest.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. Now we have some calls for public hearing. Anybody want to make some motions here?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I move to set a public hearing at the town council meeting on June the 4th, 2018, to consider the proposed text amendment to amend subsection 42-70A regarding the residence of potential Board of Adjustment members.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. We have one more call for public hearing. Who wants to make that motion?
I'll do that one, as soon as I find it.
You get it?
My fingers are not working well. I've been gardening too much. Thank you. I move to set a public hearing at the town council meeting on June 4th, 2018, to consider the proposed text amendments to 42-1, 42-247, 42-248, 42-249, 42-250, 42-251, 42-253, 42-73, 42-74, 42-75, 42-76, 42-77, and 42-78 regarding permeable pavement and lot coverage.
All right, does that have a second?
A second.
Did you get the, Lynn, did you get that? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None. Okay. Now we have new business. We get into the resolution authorizing exchange of property. I checked to make sure, Casey, manager, all the notices went out in proper and timely fashion? All right.
Yes, Mayor. Rob and I had a conversation about that end of last week, as a matter of fact, just to dot our i's, cross our t's.
Good enough. All right. I'm going to read the resolution, and then you make a motion whether or not you want to approve it. The Town of Kitty Hawk, resolution authorizing exchange of property. Whereas the Town of Kitty Hawk, hereinafter town, owns Lot 6 and 7 of Section C, Kitty Hawk Beach subdivision, and respectively known as 5117 and 5113 Putter Lane, Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, each valued at $106,500. And whereas Putter Lane OBX LLC, hereinafter LLC, owns or will own Lot 212, Lot 211, Lot 210, and Lot 209 of Section C, Kitty Hawk Beach subdivision, and respectively known as 4907, 4911, 4915, and 4919 Putter Lane, Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, each valued at $106,500. $106,500. Whereas the town and LLC wish to make an exchange of the property described above, wherein the town would acquire 4907, 4911, 4915, and 4919 Putter Lane, Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, and the LLC would acquire 5117 and 5113 Putter Lane, Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, with no other consideration being tendered by either party to the exchange. And whereas the town finds that it would receive full and fair consideration in exchange for its property. Whereas North Carolina General Statute, Section 160A, TAC 271, authorizes the town to make such an exchange if authorized by the Kitty Hawk Town Council by a resolution adopted at a regular meeting of the council upon at least 10 days' public notice, and whereas the town has given the required public notice and the council is convened in a regular meeting. Now, therefore, the Town Council of Kitty Hawk resolves that, 1, the exchange of properties described above be authorized. 2, the appropriate town officials are directed to prepare and execute the appropriate instruments necessary to carry out the exchange. This would be adopted on May 7, 2018. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve the resolution as read, Mr. Mayor.
Do I hear a second? All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? None. All right. Manager and lawyer get to work.
Got it?
All right, I'm going to make a motion to schedule fiscal year 2018-19 budget public hearing for the June 4, 2018 council meeting, Kitty Hawk Town Hall at 6 p.m. Does that have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, Mr. Town Manager, you're up.
Good evening. Just one announcement this evening. As a reminder, we went to a pilot program for our large item pickup. The next large item pickup is going to be Monday, May 21st. That includes things such as old furniture, any type of junk that you have, you can put it out by the curb, our Public Works Department will come by and pick that up. But it's not for vegetative debris, so just for large items, things that have broken down that you don't need that's laying around your house. Other than that, that's all I have this evening.
All right, Mr. Attorney.
I believe I'm mum tonight, nothing from me, Mayor.
Right, you done enough damage. There you go. All right, Town Council. Craig, you want to start us tonight?
Just thank staff for everything you've done. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for their participation in the marathon, also for the town police department. Public Works did a great job. I was at the 3.5 mile post, and by the time the last runner came by, the truck that came by who cleaned up everything was right behind me. So we were done 45 minutes, town was clean. Y'all did an outstanding job. I got to say, and this is for a personal level on, is being in this position when issues like this come up, what we dealt with Putter Lane. First of all, Mayor, you did a great job of presenting really both sides of everything. And the analogy of the fire department, when we first had that initial contact meeting, I made a comment that the fire department would have been much more intrusive than being a medical center, and I truly believe that. Having said that, still, sometimes you do things by being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars that might be offset and reflect negatively on someone, and you never like doing that. But that's why you have this job, that we do what we do. The thing that I found was very encouraging was the fact that, Mr. DeLucia, you did a fantastic job of working with the planner, having some ideas that you wanted to change, and I think the applicant did the best he could with what he had to work with to help you to address some of your issues. The planner did a great job, the staff did a great job. So we took a situation and tried to make it best it could possibly be for the taxpayers. And that's what our position here is anyway. So that's about all I got.
Well said.
Dan?
Thank you, Irvin. That was well said, and it's something we all go through. We have to weigh a lot of things to come to some of the decisions that we come to. And a lot of thought goes into it. A lot of my time has been spent on this project in particular, looking at things 6 ways till Sunday and trying to figure out if we're doing the best thing, taking everything into consideration. In the long run, I really think it's going to work out. I don't think there's going to be a problem. People change their minds on things all the time, maybe the perceived loss of value of property in the long run isn't going to matter one way or the other. So, and Mr. DeLucia, I really hope you never need to take any of the kids or anybody to the nearest medical facility. But if you do, you'll have one really close by that could treat any cuts and scrapes that come about while they're playing. And that's always a comforting thing to a parent, is to know that there's some medical attention close by. Anyway, the staff does a tremendous job, and we need to get out of here because the Board of Elections wants to set up, and I want to tell everybody, it might only be a primary, but everybody needs to vote.
Amen.
Well, I have to agree, that we do have to deal with these from time to time, and I think the applicant did the best he could to try to work the best he could with the neighbors. And once again, I think this is a good thing for the town and for the future of Kitty Hawk, as far as potentially us needing, meaning the town area, for something else down the road, whether a fire department or police department. So it's providing a little bit more land, and like I say, it is a tough, and I hope that it does work out, that it doesn't impact as much as you think it will. That's all.
Thank you. Unfortunately, since this all came up, I've had to carry my wife up to the urgent care, and because of their limited space, they were unable to do all the things they needed to do there. So we wound up down at the Outer Banks, and then she actually wound up in Greenville. But The bottom line is this, this is bigger than the town, all right? We're doing two things, we hope in the best interest of our citizens. One is bigger space for police station, fire station, whatever we need down the road. Two, we're doing for our citizens, we've been told they want to move out of Marketplace, and with regional gone, and we know it's not coming back, there's no place between here and someplace in Elizabeth City or Outer Banks Hospital or down in that direction. So it affects not just the citizens of Kitty Hawk, but Duck and Southern Shores. And I can tell you, those folks want something up this way as well. Because when I go to mayor's luncheons, they mention that as well. So there's a bigger picture than just a small picture. And that's the way I looked at it, and that's what I'm trying to do, setting up here just like the rest of you. All right, enough said on that. Now, public comment.
I just want to say that I've learned a lot of lessons from this experience. I think, of course, the town needs medical care. I don't think this is the way to get it, because this isn't going to provide you any more medical care. It's going to provide less. But what's bigger than the town is whether or not people live by the rules, whether or not the laws are followed, whether or not the regulations are followed. The planning board did not follow the town land use plan, and they said so. It said that you're not supposed to grant this permissive use permit unless you follow that plan. But laws and rules and regulations mean something. In this case, they did not. We have, Tom and I have come here and others, I mean, because of what somebody said, the land use, that the land value went up down by the Outer Banks Hospital. Our land, the value of our property is not going up. You did not meet this requirement. You should not have voted for this, because the rules say that you should have done something else. So I just think it's a travesty. I think that the damage that's been done is really to the integrity and the faith that people have in their local public elected officials, whether the rules mean anything, whether the regulations mean anything, whether the town use plan means anything, whether you meet these requirements or not. I was listening to the engineer. They've done everything they can to avoid having a traffic impact study, because I think they knew if they had a traffic impact study that they would not have been able to get those cuts. But they should have had one, because that is a dangerous intersection. There will be consequences of that eventually. So I think it's been quite an experience. I spent 20 years fighting against oligarchs in Russia. An oligarch is a powerful businessman who has influence on government and uses that influence to increase their wealth and their power. I didn't expect to come back to Kitty Hawk and be next door to the local oligarch.
Thank you.
I also just wanted to make a comment. I'm glad that the council is pleased with the outcome and everyone's all in favor of increased medical care. And Ms. McLean, I certainly would appreciate having access to health care at the end of my driveway, although that's not the reason why I bought the house. If you remember when I first came to this very first meeting that we were notified about, I told you all that we purchased that house specifically because those two lots were beach residential. Specifically because we did our homework and we found out from an experience in Kill Devil Hills that a big business came in and did something by putting in parking lots. And we did our homework. We knew these were beach residential lots. We knew they would be residences, if ever, that somebody wanted to be on the main highway. And that was one of the reasons we were willing to take the risk to buy there, because we found those lots to be undesirable, and we thought they'd be vacant for quite some time. What I don't appreciate and take personal offense to is the innuendos regarding the firehouse. And I don't appreciate being, I call it taunted for lack of a better word, about how we could put a fire station, how we could put the fire chief's talking about testing his equipment, and how we could do this and we could do this. We don't approve the urgent care center, we could put a fire department in there. That's wonderful. Y'all made a mistake. 10 years ago, you didn't rezone the lots like you were supposed to. I did my homework. I made sure those would be our lots. I made sure there would be residences there when I moved, put a contract on that house, and bought it. And now, I gotta hear from the council how we could put a fire department in there, because you guys made the mistake, and you didn't zone it correctly 10 years ago. And that's ridiculous. So now it's been bulldozed through, because we're just a little guy, and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a rich man. My entire retirement savings went into that house. And now we're gonna have an urgent care. We can't even get a gate. I thank the engineer for getting rid of the dumpster. I appreciate that immensely. I won't have to look at it. We can't even get a gate. So who should I call? Ms. McLean? Every day that people start going through there and come onto Putter Lane on Saturdays because they can't get out onto the highway because of the traffic? Who do I call? Just call the police and say, hey, there's a violator. Not following that sign because of the conditional use permit that required that sign when the first building went up? Because I guarantee it's going to happen. Every day it happens. I watch people go through there all the time. So that's going to amplify over and over again. Our quiet, calm Putter Lane is going to become a busy street for all those people that are going to be cutting through that parking lot. And I don't appreciate it. I did my homework. You guys did not do your homework. And you should be ashamed of yourselves because you're affecting me. Yes, I'm all in favor of the better for all the people in the town of Kitty Hawk, getting more health care. But do it on a lot that was already zoned for that purpose, not one that was zoned for residential use. Yeah, you're making 200 grand. I don't know what's gonna happen to my property value. You wanna buy my house? I'd love to sell it to you for what I paid for it. I have no options. I have to sit there and I have to watch whatever's going to be built in front of me, and then I have to watch the traffic cut through the streets all the time. So I urge you to reconsider at least the gate. I thank the engineer for getting rid of the dumpster. Now let's just cut the traffic out. Think about the gate. Put it up. You don't even have to lock it. People are going to see it and they're not going to go through there. What's the big deal? It's a pipe. Put a cone in the road. I don't care. Do something. But I guarantee the traffic's going to increase on Putter Lane. So if you have any conscience whatsoever about how you didn't do your homework 10 years ago or your predecessors didn't do their homework 10 years ago, I urge you to reconsider and cut the traffic down coming onto Putter Lane, because it's going to happen. Because if it doesn't, then I'll put my little innuendos that you guys gave to me about the fire station. I suspect there'll be an increase to the police station about complaints of people cutting through onto Putter Lane that are not following the traffic signs. It could happen. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I hope I'm the last to comment here. There's a lot of things. I'm part of the board of elections here, and we're going to be setting up here. But I also live on Lunar. Now, with respect to Russian oligarchs, I'm sorry, that was a little over the top. Some of your other stuff is quite valid. Now, to the north of this that you're putting in is the Heart Rehab Center, and then we have the access to get into the regional care. And that regional access has a turnoff. Now, since I've lived there, I know that that new sign has been run into and mowed over. And seriously, people have been hurt there. I've had my cable and electricity on Grissom, which is to the south of there, cut by 2 accidents over the last couple of years. One here fairly recently. Joe Lamb's fence got destroyed in that latest accident. I understand. You're impacted. Guess where they're going to put the fire station? It's going to be right behind pretty much my house because I'm on Lunar right across there. As somebody who just had his hearing checked at that hearing center and has lost part of his hearing due to emergency vehicles and other things, God bless you. But you have to have fire stations. We know that. I would love to have it mitigated where people don't crank federal right outside the doorstep, but sometimes that has to happen. We had an accident here Sunday, I believe. Very serious accident right there where somebody got whaled in the suicide lane. Right there, right around where Bennett is. That area is a trouble spot for traffic. We all know it. Perhaps they didn't do the traffic study by mitigating things in such a way. But let's not kid ourselves. There are going to be accidents there because people come wailing around that corner. That's a busy intersection. That being said, we all understand the politics involved in the marketplace, which is why they have to move here. I appreciate being able to walk to my care, but as somebody who also walks up to Home Depot sometimes, there's no walkway there. Now, anybody who does a map review knows that it's a nightmare trying to squeeze anything in there just to be built. Look at what we're going through right here, just for this. But we haven't even put a walkway in around that corner. You have to go across the street. You know, you can dodge the traffic, go across Fonk, or you can actually walk up to the medical center and then cross at the island. Or you can go all the way down the other end of Putter and Johnson and come out to Eckner. And you even have to kind of dogleg through some of the property you're not supposed to cut through, but you know, we've lived there long enough on the golf course that we do that anyways. So there are some issues here. I would love to get some mitigation here just for foot traffic, but that's not on the menu right now. We all know that. We know that this is going to go through. I'm sorry we fought oligarchs for 20 years. I'm sorry I'm one of the guys that takes that turnoff to go through the medical center, so I'm a slanted person. All right? I'm one of your offenders. I'm sorry. Have you watch out? I didn't want to be your dog. I'm one of the guys that's going to be right behind where police and fire, when you guys build the station, gets cranked up. I know we need all of these things to happen. I would like a little more mitigation. I hope that if there is some room for more mitigation, that you make these guys immediately happy as best you can, but we know they're not going to be ever happy. We've already gotten that off the table. That's the end of it. I know you're not going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy. You guys are doing what you're going to do. And you're doing the best you can, and we're going to wind up with a fire station and police. We know that. We need it. Can we work on some mitigation on that end of town? You know, I hate treating it like you guys are counties living, you know, with the alligator in the creek back here. That running joke, but let's do some things. Let's seriously, I would love to talk to the planning board now that we're doing this. What can we do to mitigate some of the things on that end of town?
Okay.
That's my public comment. And certainly in terms of the election, I really do hope that we do have more turnout. Because seriously, for one of my fundraising barbecues, I probably could have raised enough votes to get 2 seats on this council. The turnout's been terrible. That's my public comment on the turnout. I would love to see more turnout from a board of elections here. God bless you all. I hope this wraps everything up. Please go.
We do
Set
too.
up.
All right. Thank you. Those folks want to set up. All right, anybody else? Let the record show no one came forward. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.